One person got lost in the forest. He wandered for a long time, and in the end, at dusk came across a hut. There was no one inside, and he decided to go to bed. But he couldn't fall asleep for a long time, because portraits of some people hung on the wall, and it seemed to him that they were looking at him ominously. He eventually fell asleep from exhaustion. In the morning, he was awakened by bright sunlight. There were no pictures on the walls. They were windows. One winter, 4 students from Mount Cheering Club get lost in the mountains and are caught in a snowstorm. They managed to get to an abandoned and empty house. There was nothing in it to keep warm, and the guys realized that they would freeze to death if they fell asleep in this place. One of them suggested this. Everyone stands in a corner of the room. First, one runs to the other, pushes him, he runs to the third, and so on. So they will not fall asleep, and the movement will warm them up. Until the morning, they run along the walls, and in the morning they were found by rescuers. When the students later spoke of their salvation, someone asked, "If there is one person in each corner, then when the fourth reaches the corner, there should be no one there. Why didn't you stop then?" The 4 looked at each other in horror. No, they never stopped. One girl photographer decided to spend the day and night alone in the deep forest. She was not afraid, because it was not for the first time when she went hiking. All day she captured pictures of trees and grasses with a film camera. And in the evening, she settled down to sleep in her small tent. The night passed quietly. The horror overtook her only a few days later. All 4 reels produced excellent shots, except the last picture. All the photographs showed her sleeping peacefully in her tent in the darkness of the night. Somehow a married couple decided to go to the cinema and leave the children with a babysitter. They put the children to bed, so the babysitter just had to stay at home, just in case. Soon, the girl became bored. Then she decided to watch TV. She called her parents and asked them for permission to turn on the TV. Of course, they agreed, but she had one more request. She asked if she could cover the statue of an angel outside the window with something, because it made her nervous. For a second, the phone went silent. And then the father, who spoke to the girl, said, "Take the children and run out of the house. We will call the police. We don't have a statue of an angel." The police found everyone at home dead. The statue of an angel was never found. My girlfriend wrote today that she didn't knew that I have such a charming brother, and even a twin. It turns out that she had just stopped by my house, not knowing that I was late at work until the night, and he met her there. He introduced himself, offered me coffee, told some funny stories from his childhood, and walked him to the elevator. And I don't even know how to tell her that I don't have a brother. The 12-year-old girl lived with her father. They had a great relationship. One day, my father was going to stay late at work and said that he would return late at night. The girl waited for him, waited, and finally went to bed. She had a strange dream. Her father was standing on the other side of a busy highway and was shooting something to her. "Don't open the door." And then the girl woke up from the doorbell. She jumped out of bed, ran to the door, looked through the peephole, and saw her father's face. The girl was about to open the lock as she remembered the dream, and the father's face was somehow strange. She stopped. The bell rang again.
Dad? Daddy, answer me. Is there someone with you? Dad, why aren't you answering? I won't open the door until you answer me.
The doorbell rang and rang, but my father was silent. The girl sat huddled in the corner of the hallway. This all went for an hour. Then the girl fell into oblivion. At dawn, she woke up and realized that the doorbell was no longer ringing. She crept up to the door and looked through the peephole again. Her father was still standing there, looking straight at her. The girl cautiously opened the door and screamed. Her father's severed head was nailed to the door at the eye level, and there was a note on the doorbell with only 2 words: "Smart girl." It was around the mountains of Kyrgyzstan. The climbers set up a camp near a small mountain lake. Around midnight, everyone wanted to sleep. Suddenly, a noise was heard from the side of the lake. Either crying or laughter. Friends, there were 5 of them, decided to check what was the matter. They did not find anything near the shore, but they saw a strange fog in which white lights shone. The guys went to the lights. We took only a couple of steps towards the lake, and then one of the last ones noticed that he was deep in the icy water. He checked the 2 closest to him. They came to their senses and climbed out of the fog. But the 2 that went ahead disappeared into the fog and water. It was impossible to find them in the cold, in the dark. In the early morning, so I was hurried for the rescue team. They didn't find anybody, and by evening, those 2 who had just plunged into the fog died.